Good morning, stakeholders. It's Waterman. Is Melbourne's Metro Tunnel still on track? Three stations ready, hospital dramas, and more budget blowouts. Is Melbourne's Metro Tunnel still on track? The Victorian government has blamed increased building costs for the additional $837 million spent, with the project now more than $3 billion over its initial budget. The cost of the Victorian government's Metro Tunnel rail project has blown out by an additional $837 million. Waterman here. I'm a public transport infrastructure consultant.
We apologise for any inconvenience caused.
Good morning passengers, just a reminder this train terminates at Box Hill. There's replacement buses between Box Hill
At a snap
and
press conference on Thursday afternoon, the state's Transport Infrastructure Minister, Danny Pearson, announced the Victorian state government had reached a deal with the project's builders to cover the growing construction costs of the new underground rail line. Transport Infrastructure Minister Danny Pearson said under the agreement the government would provide the Cross Yarra Partnerships Consortium with up to $745 million of additional payments attached to the completion of milestones. The consortium would also chip in a comparable amount, though he would not provide a figure. About $85 million will also be given to the government's Rail Projects Authority to continue testing and trialling on the line. It will bring the cost of the taxpayer-funded portion of the project to $13.48 billion, well above the $11 billion estimated in 2017.
There's replacement buses between Box Hill and Camberwell.
What is Melbourne's Metro Tunnel? What has been blamed for the latest blowout? When is it actually opening? What is the controversy surrounding electromagnetic interference? When will the public actually be able to ride on Melbourne's new Metro Tunnel? Learn more about these topics and the full story in future news reports. Here's what we know about Melbourne's long-awaited Melbourne Metro Tunnel project. What is Melbourne's Metro Tunnel? Consisting of two 9-kilometre train tunnels under Melbourne's CBD, the Metro Tunnel was one of the first major infrastructure projects committed to when Premier Daniel Andrews became Labor leader. The project has a long history. Planning began in 2008 under Labor Premier John Brumby before it was scrapped in favour of a different Premier, Liberal Dennis Napthine in 2014 and then resumed by Labor's new Premier Daniel Andrews. His government signed a contract with the Cross Yarra Partnership to build the Metro Tunnel rail line under Melbourne's CBD for $11 billion in 2017 with a completion date of the 17th of September 2026. 2 years later, the builders downed tools due to rising costs. In 2020, both parties agreed to spend an extra $1.37 billion on the project, with 2026 set as the completion date, but then brought forward to 2025.
Good morning passengers, just a reminder this train terminates at Box Hill.
Melbourne's Metro Tunnel will connect the Sunbury line, which runs through Melbourne's western suburbs, with the Cranbourne and Pakenham lines in Melbourne's east, taking pressure off Melbourne's City Loop. 5 new underground stations will also be created. Arden, a development area in North Melbourne, Parkville, near the University of Melbourne and several major hospitals, and State Library and Town Hall stations in Melbourne CBD. Earlier this month, the government announced major construction was complete on 3 of the 5 stations. Anzac Station, Arden Station and Parkville Station, with testing running since mid-2023, travelling some 20,000 kilometres.
There's replacement buses between Box Hill and Camberwell.
When Premier Daniel Andrews resigned as Premier of Victoria in September 23, he described a test ride on the tunnel as the best experience of his 9 years as Premier of Victoria. Premier Daniel Andrews said, "I went from Arden Station and I travelled underneath the city at 80 kilometres an hour on a train that was made right here in Victoria through a tunnel that is finished because of the good work of Victorians." What has been blamed for the latest blowout? Victorian Transport Infrastructure Minister Danny Pearson said the cost of materials, workforce shortages and the COVID-19 pandemic, the wars in Ukraine and Gaza and rising interest rates are some factors contributing to rising costs. These are just the realities of what we've had to deal with, he said. What we've seen across the world is that there's been a pressure on projects. In relation to the Australian Eastern Seaboard, we've seen a 22% increase in building and material and labour costs since 2021, and this has affected a number of projects in Australia. Transport Infrastructure Minister Pearson said the budgets for Sydney's Metro Tunnel increased by $9 billion in 2023. Inland rail projects has almost doubled to $31 billion, as has the Snowy Hydro Scheme 2.0. He said the reality is it is just costing more to build anything anywhere in the world. So when is it actually opening? When test trains began running on Melbourne's Metro Tunnel in July 2023, some industry experts began to speculate that the project was nearing completion, with this reaching a fever pitch when the chief executive of construction giant John Holland, a key member of the consortium, let slip at an industry event in 2023 that the tunnel would open in September 2024 as originally planned. But the project has run into several difficulties, as an Auditor General's report tabled in State Parliament in June 2024 said it was running overtime and was due to be completed in June 2025. Rail Projects Victoria told the Auditor General this was due to a lack of construction workers, supply chain hold-ups and disruptions caused by issues identified during systems testing and integration. This included an issue around electromagnetic interference caused by the trains travelling through the tunnel, which the Auditor General said adversely affected medical and scientific equipment in nearby hospitals and research facilities such as the Royal Melbourne Hospital and the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre. What is the controversy surrounding electromagnetic interference? Work is underway between Rail Projects Victoria and the affected institutions to find a permanent solution to the issue, which largely concerns MRI services to different floors or buildings in the precinct. According to the Auditor General, a trial with Peter MacCallum Cancer Institute to test if magnetic active cancellation systems could be mitigated is still ongoing. As of February 2024, the cost to address electromagnetic interference issues is now at $179 million, and The Guardian understands that this is likely to increase. It has also thrown a huge spanner into the Victorian Government's 2022 election commitment to build a major hospital precinct at Arden in North Melbourne, including expansion of facilities at the Royal Melbourne and Royal Women's Hospitals in this area. Instead, the Victorian-made budget revealed the government has opted to expand the precinct in Parkville, where work to manage the interference will be ongoing for years. Arden Station and the surrounding area in North Melbourne will instead be used and focused for housing.
There's replacement buses between Box Hill and Camberwell.
When will Melbourne's Metro Tunnel be available to the public? Victorian Transport Infrastructure Minister Danny Pearson said the Melbourne Metro Tunnel project would be open to the public in 2025. But he refused to say which month it would start taking passengers. He also refused to guarantee the project wouldn't face further financial troubles. Transport Infrastructure Minister Pearson said, "I cannot guarantee that there won't be another pandemic next year. I can't guarantee those things. Here and now, we've got an investment into this project which will ensure that the project has the resources it needs to get on with the job and complete it as planned."
It's Waterman here. I'm a public transport infrastructure consultant. It's my job to liaise between the STM Asia Pacific Construction and the government and the Transport Minister in particular to ensure that project timelines under the terms of this contract are being met by the firm. If you're an investor from interstate or overseas.
Good morning passengers, just a reminder this train terminates at Box Hill.
This story first published in Melbourne, Victoria on April, written by
We'll be undertaking a short tour of this site, the proposed new Arden Station under the new Melbourne Metro Underground Rail project. So if you'll come with me, we'll start right away.
Passengers, please finish boarding. The train is ready to depart. This train is now...
This concludes our tour for today. This ends our tour for today. This concludes our tour for today. We hope you enjoyed this insight into state government's preparations for how your investment money is being spent. If you have any more questions, my name's Waterman. You can contact me via the Victorian State Government's Department of Transport or STM Asia Pacific Construction.
Replacement buses between Box Hill and Camberwell. Anyone wishing to take replacement buses, please head upstairs and find safe and dark for more information.
We apologise for any inconvenience caused.
back to business.